Hello, Oakley, and hello, everyone.
Welcome to Thursday night Zoom class, and wherever you are, we're so excited that you're with us. Omar, where are you right now? Speaking of where are we?
I am calling from Oahu.
Yes.
I know we're taking advantage of my daughter's doing Zoom school and my wife and I being able to Zoom work. We figured if we can Zoom anywhere, we might as well take advantage of it. And so we're in Oahu for the next little bit.
Great call, my friend. Great call. Way to mobilize.
You know, it's got a low transmission rate out here, and you got to take all kinds of tests to get here. And so they're super, you can't even check into the hotel without a clear test. So it just.
Wow. That's awesome. So you're sort of on a quarantined safe island.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're doing. And I mean, this is what happens.
We'll forward. All be there next week. Everyone, I'll send you his location.
Just test negative and this too can be yours.
Amen. Well, welcome everybody. It's so good to see familiar faces, new faces. We have an awesome hour ahead together. Tonight we're talking about posture and the power of posture in our lives, because all month we're discussing the little things.
Still my favorite.
So great, the little things. And so posture is a huge thing, but when broken down, it's a little tiny, witty bitty thing. And definitely in the way that we're going to talk about it, it's a little thing, and we're going to talk about why it matters and what it can do for us. So welcome.
It's awesome. It's that just sense of alignment that comes from just noticing what our body is doing. And you're going to take us through some exercises today too?
I think a couple.
All
but right. I think you are too. We have a combined exercise regime.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So should we check in, see how folks are doing?
Yeah, let's check in. How is everybody? Let's one word in the chat or a phrase or access your mic, whatever your fancy is today.
Alive.
Hi, alive. Welcome. You have oxygen, so this is a real alive.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for staying.
We appreciate you being part of our aliveness.
We need your light here, you know, madam. So I appreciate you choosing alive. Awesome. Who else? Linda, hi.
Glad to be back. I've had all kinds of conflicts on Thursdays. So I just watched last week's session and I'm glad to be here tonight.
Oh, welcome. Thanks for being with us.
We're a no conflict zone here. It's all peace and love.
Thanks, Linda. Who else?
We also want to check in.
Amy, how are you?
We're going to call on people otherwise. She's good.
Very content and like chill today.
Oh, content. I see it in the chat. Thanks. Awesome. Welcome. With
Thank
the vibes.
you.
Good vibes. Good. Is Garfield there? Justine?
Anticipatory for me.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Just all around good.
That's great. We'll take good.
Hey, Wally, we're doing one-word check-ins. We've got the drummer extraordinaire, Wally Ingram, with us.
Welcome.
Hello, y'all. I'm trying to get my audio happening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I can barely hear you. I just got a new computer.
Awesome.
This is my first Zoom on it.
All right.
So exciting, but I've been like keeping track of you guys. I've had you on my calendar.
Right
I'm
on.
finally setting the time and intention to be with you. So
Ah,
bear with me while I try to get my headphones on.
awesome.
And
Thank you,
hopefully very soon we will, we have Wally and friends have created a sound bath album that we will be hopefully releasing on the gthx app soon.
Ooh.
So
Oh, that sounds
we'll have
awesome.
to do a live drumming session with you, Wally, not to put you on the spot or anything, but you know, we'll do a live drumming
Sure, why not?
session, you know, get us in the zone. All right, I like it.
Sounds awesome.
That'd be cool.
Denise, how are you doing? We're just doing quick check-ins.
Good.
Awesome.
Yes, my husband and son are up in Oregon, so I have been home alone for a week.
Ooh.
So much better.
Yeah.
You know.
Good. Breathe that in. Awesome.
I am, yeah. First time in 13 years that I have been home alone.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I
That's
kid you not. So like Brandon, my son and I have taken lots of, you know, journeys and road trips and stuff, but dad and son never have. So it's glorious.
Wow. Right on.
and
Yeah.
I'm honored that
Glowing.
you're celebrating it with us. That's amazing. Thank you, Denise.
Yeah, I can talk out loud. I can say stuff. Last week I went and closed myself in the car
That's right.
because I was ready to just like bleh, unload, and then we ran out of time, and so I got to come. But yeah, I was literally like in the dark, in the car, in the garage, so I could speak.
Oh,
So now I'm at liberty to talk, and pardon the dog, but yeah,
that's good.
Great. That's
yeah.
great.
So like just between the election and you know this little respite, it's like I feel totally different. It's really cool.
Yes.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're glowing. You're like glowing. So,
Well, I had a shower, so I'm clean.
all right.
So you know
Awesome.
that doesn't
The whole
happen
thing.
too often.
It's all here. This is so good.
Yeah, it's like I had a shower. I'm alone.
Right on.
This is self-care at its finest, y'all.
Woo! Yes, man, oh man,
That's so good.
all good.
Teresa, we're just doing check-ins.
Okay. I'm doing good. Thank you. I'm having a good week. Yes.
That's awesome. It's good to hear your voice.
Thank you. Same here to hear yours and both of you. I look forward to this.
Thank you.
Thanks. Omar,
Yes.
do you want to talk to us a tiny bit about posture just from your lens of Qigong?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Well, first off, I wanted to share that I can't remember if I said this or not, but this is the 25th session that we've been doing Thankful Thursdays
Nice.
since
That
basically
is
the
good.
end of March. And, you know, I've been reflecting on it recently, and it's kind of been my own personal anchor through this year. And so just as you are looking forward to it, I've been looking forward to it. And I know that Oakley and I have been sort of crisscrossing the country, and we've just, thanks to Brian, our sound engineer, like I've got the sweetest like audio travel equipment now. I can do this on the road anywhere. And
Wow.
and I think that's part of what, you know, I think our posture, we can do this anywhere, and just sort of like that tuning in. One of the things that I've found sort of wild about this period, and for those that have been watching or joining us for a while, I went into a deep meditation period in June, and then that sort of evolved into sort of Qigong. And one of the things I realized through all this sort of focusing is where all my stress is held physically. And so there was a section here in my shoulder and like a section over in the back here. And it was interesting that by pausing, I became more aware of that tightness and just sort of slowly kind of working through it. And about last week, I took my daughters to the doctor for their annual checkup. And they're doing really well. They're 90 percentile of height, which makes my wife very happy. And the doctor had them sort of just do like a bend over to touch their toes. And she said, "Oh, you have a little hump on the right side. It's nothing to be worried about, but it's just sort of noticeable on my youngest daughter, who does capoeira and like spends most of her time upside down doing handstands. If like she could do school Zoom upside down on a handstand, she would do it in a heartbeat." And then she checked my older daughter and she said, "Oh yeah, you also have the same thing." And I was like, "That's so fascinating, because that's where I hold my pain." And she's like, "Well, you bend over and like, you know, touch your toes." I couldn't touch my toes, but I could, you know, I could lean over. And she's like, "You also have it." And so it's just fascinating, you know, now after all these years, to realize that I had this sort of slight sort of, I don't know, bump, and that my daughters have it too. And so just becoming more attuned, and then sort of realizing, like, having to be even more conscientious about my posture. And one of the things I've been doing lately is sort of imagining myself as a level. If anybody's done any carpentry or hung any posters or frames, and you've those little levels with like the bubble, the air bubble that you're trying to get between the two lines. And that's how I sort of been imagining as I sort of rock forward and backward. Can I find that level? And then all of a sudden my brain actually changes. Like I can physically feel my brain as if it was that bubble. And it's like, for all of a sudden, I lose sort of connection to everything. So I sort of become not aware once I hit that bubble. And so now, you can even do this right now if you wanted, is just rocking backwards and forwards and seeing where you are. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay. I actually spent a lot more time leaning forward than I realize. And then the other thing that ends up happening is realizing that like I jut my chin out a lot. So not only am I leaning forward, I'm like got my chin moving forward. So pulling the sort of the back of my neck up so that your chin kind of draws in a little bit, and then finding that rocking sensation. And then all of a sudden, even right now, as we're doing this, the somewhat consistent pain that I feel in my back just goes away. And it's been fascinating to do it while I'm walking too. So I realize when I'm walking, I'm like, I must be in a rush. Like my chin needs to like finish some finish line. So anyway, these are just some of the basic things that just in the last couple of months, it's just been like, wow, okay.
I love all of these because I think today, since we're talking about the little things, it's the subtlety of this like sweet spot. When you rock, there's almost a place of magnetism that you sort of rock through until you find it. And then you're like, whoa, there's an alignment that happens, and sort of this peace, the nervous system sort of exhales, you know? And so our posture is so tied to the nervous system. I'm like, Justine, I know you're there, you know all of this. And what's fascinating is in the realm of psychology is that you can activate a negative pattern just by changing your posture. So if someone doesn't have a sense of self-worth, or they carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, you can see it in their bodies. And I was someone that really carried people on my back. And so now I'm a healthy therapist, but I had a history before being a therapist that was helping and saving. So that looked like my back, right, sort of being rounded a little bit. And as soon as I realized I didn't have to play that role anymore and I could engage the world differently, I got to put my shoulders back a little bit and have all that weight just slide off. And I actually started thinking and talking differently. It helped my neurology shift my deeper patterns, which was so, so cool. On that same sort of awakening storyline, I remember taking one of my first yoga classes with an extraordinary human being, and she is a sort of renowned yogi. She's not famous or anything like that. She's sort of the sleeper yogi that teaches all the other ones that are famous, right? And she would come to Boulder and she would do these sort of coveted workshops where she would separate identifying men, identifying women, men and women, into 2 different classes. And women were in 2 hours in the afternoon and men were for 2 hours in the morning. And I think her name was Sophia. I'm not even going to get it right. So I somehow scored a ticket to her class. I was just quick. And I ended up in this huge space with just, I mean, it must have been at least 60 plus women on their yoga mats. And she capped it at a certain number, right? And we would begin the yoga class and she was fierce and she would take us through these postures and have us hold them and our bodies would be shaking. And she would give these talks about emotions and freedom and trauma while we were going through the yoga class. And it was very much like a cleansing workshop, right? And again, this is sort of like my first intro. So I'm in a squatting position called horse stance, right? Now I know it's called horse stance. Before it was just called like, oh my God, can I get out of this right now, please? And we would be squatted down and I was shaking and trembling and it had been like 5 minutes and I was just about to fall. And she comes over and she takes her 2 fingers and she touches the crest of my shoulders ever so gently and moves them back about 1 inch. And she just looks me in the eyes and she goes, "What are you so afraid of?" And I just burst into tears. I don't even know, it wasn't even conscious. And so just that inch back of having my shoulders not protect me, right? So it's like that inch, I shouldn't have worn black today. And so it's these really subtle micro movements in our body that can support new thoughts, new states of feeling, and new sort of relationship with the world around us. So we'll just practice that because we hold all of our beliefs in our physical body, right? And as soon as we identify where we hold them, we can begin to release them. So let's start with just a really easy little experiment. So wherever you're seated, I just want you guys to sort of allow your bodies to collapse down, right? Like just let your head go, let your shoulders curl, and really exaggerate it. And just notice, like it might be relaxing to turn inward. It might also be sort of like vulnerable, or you might feel safer. Just notice whatever feelings or thoughts come up as you sort of collapse your body all the way down. And just notice, there's no right or wrong. There's no real script. There's a million books, but there's no real script, right? And ever so gently begin to breathe and increase that inhale and bring yourself up as if you're sort of waking up to face the world in a way that feels good to you. Not power over, but relationship with, where the heart is sort of gently shining and you want that heart to rest in the rib cage, shoulders relaxed, jaws slightly in. And as if you have a cord from the crown of your head pulling your spine to elongate up. And just take a breath there. And now be easy about it. Just let yourself sink a little bit into that upward posture and just be easy. Now notice, can my shoulders kind of move back a little more? Can my rib cage knit in a tiny bit? And just find a sense of quietude just in this moment. You don't need to make it big. And that's it. And we're going to do it one more time. So from here, I just want you guys to really gently do the I'm bored at school sit, and just notice, right away, the neural pathways going from down our spine up into our brain are compromised from this. Because now the muscles are pulling in ways to keep us upright that aren't natural because our bones should be sitting stacked. right? So now exaggerate it even more. And whatever your story is about yourself, like I can't do it, I'm not good enough, whatever those fun core things are that our egos tells us, like, ugh, another day, oh my God. Just sort of like let yourself collapse into it. And now try to think one of those thoughts. Just like pull your biggest Eeyore out, like, oh, I can't do it. I guess it's just not happening. The world, everything's on me. Like, just go for it, right? And now slowly bring yourself up to that sort of aligned space. Again, your bones are stacking on top of each other, and the spine is long, as if I'm pulling gently on the crown of the head, a thread that lifts you up. And your chest is soft. Everyone just relax that chest a little bit. Make it soft. You don't have to puff it out. And allow your shoulders to just micro half an inch back. And let your rib cage sort of soften down. Chin is slightly in and tucked. And now notice there's going to be a slight energy surge that can move through the brain. Some will feel it, some won't. It's okay. Just sink into it for a moment and just breathe. In this state, it's actually harder to access those negative thoughts. So if you ever get confronted by a cycle of negative thinking, tend to your breath and your posture first. It's the quickest way to sort of get off the negative crazy train. Shift your posture, take a deep breath, and reassert a positive thought. So now just harness a positive thought. I am love. I am loved. I am accepted. I'm connected. I am powerful. Whatever it is for you, just harness that positive thought and feel it in your nervous system right now. I am capable. I am worthy. Just taking a breath and just being in that space and letting it really settle into the nervous system. And now pick 2 gestures in your body that can bring you back here. For me, it's chin is tucked, shoulders are relaxed. Because I also tend to jut out, sort of like chasing life. So mine is chin in, shoulders down. Yours could be relaxed chest, gentle ribs, or spine elongating up to the sky, shoulders relaxed. It could be jaw relaxed, belly softening. Pick your 2 cues that can bring you back to this positive space where you're gentle with yourself. Beautiful. So who's noticing a difference between the collapse and the spine straight? Sort of collapsed and unfurled. Okay. What are you noticing? I'd love to hear from everybody.
Giggles.
There's a little bit of euphoria that can come in the brain. That's a release of endorphins. That's beautiful. Great awareness.
I find I'm kind of a sloucher, so if I can just take my shoulders and kind of pull them back, and it kind of corrects my spine.
Nice.
It makes me focus more attention. I don't know, it seems like to open up my spinal cord somehow, maybe activate. And being a drummer, I kind of, it scares me when I see videos of myself, because quite often you're hunched over and you're, you know,
Right.
you're kind of out of your body a little bit, and you're, you know, all your
Yep.
limbs are going, so I end up getting a lot of weird
Shoulder
tension,
pain.
lower back and whatnot. But I think
Yep.
my point is, if I put my shoulders back, I'll just try to straighten my spine if I can.
That's it. That's awesome, Wally. And remember too, sometimes finding shoulders back, it's actually a movement of us moving from here to center, and then our shoulders can relax down.
Mm.
So you might even want to sway back a little, like Omar was sharing, and sort of find a new axis line.
I was at a Pilates teacher who is amazing, and he would tell me that you want your like belly button and your sternum to kind of be in alignment. And when he first did it, I thought like I was like falling backward almost. And now, but that sort of awareness, then all of a sudden, like my pelvis sort of tucks in a little bit. And the other thing is that, because sometimes if you put your shoulders back too much, then you're like, your chest goes out and your sternum then all of a sudden is in front of your belly button and your pelvis. And so the idea is somehow it's like the shoulders relax, but in a way that almost like sinks in, at least for me. And so getting that alignment between the pelvis, because then it just also shifts your hips a bit too. I notice it when I'm walking.
When you're, say that again?
When I'm walking.
That's perfect. I actually had that shift yesterday, Omar. I went to Pilates class, and they were, you know, this instructor was like, spine straight. And it was a one-on-one, everyone. So we were very safe with masks on. So don't worry. And they were like, spine straight. And I straightened my spine, and I was, you know, doing the thing. And she said, hey, just tuck your ribs a tiny bit. And I did. And I felt like I was falling forward. And she goes, now you're straight. And I was like, what?
Weird.
You know, because I felt so like I was falling over from all that correction of having my shoulders back. I actually was popping my ribs out. So yeah, so I love the like sort of knitting together of the ribs and having that align with the belly button pelvis. It's beautiful. So who else? We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, Amy.
One of the things I think when you think shoulders back, sometimes people throw their shoulders back. So I think collarbones wide.
Oh, I love that.
And think of shining your collarbones to the sides of the room. Like
that's the best cue.
And rib cage, you want as much space between your back ribs and pelvis as your front ribs and pelvis.
Oh,
so that should be even, you know, in the front and back body.
I forgot about that, sort of shining the collarbones, because there isn't so much a pinching behind. It's like you're reaching them out. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Did you do dance, Amy?
Yeah, dance and a lot of alignment, like Alexander technique,
Tai
Chi, yoga, all that.
We have an Alexander technique pro on this call, everyone.
Not a pro. I just very much benefited from it.
Awesome.
That's one of the weird mysteries of the universe to me. I've been hearing about Alexander technique, and I know somebody that does it, and you ask them about it and they're like, well, you can't really explain it. You have to, they use it on musicians a lot, right?
Yeah, that's how it started. Well, no, it started with a guy who was a violinist, but he was giving speeches and he would lose his voice because he was violent, you know, he was out of alignment. So they lengthened the back of his neck. But it's very subtle, Oakley, like you were talking about. Like, it's just, the corrections are just kind of bringing an awareness to an area and maybe gently, really gently guiding someone's shoulder blades down their back. And I am not an expert. I've just studied it for a little while.
That's awesome, Amy. This is
your dance posture come back almost immediately. Like all of a sudden, like you're glowing in a different way with just this sort of like posture. It's awesome.
It is. I see it too.
Thank you.
What were you going to say, Amy? We didn't want to cut you off.
I was going to say to Wally, as soon as you started talking about this, immediately my body was opening up through my collarbones.
Yeah.
So it's almost like your heart is forward while you're drumming.
Mm.
But I get what you're saying. If you throw it back too far, you're kind of overdoing it. So then you kind of, you do it to reset and then kind of like let it relax back a little bit. I'm also realizing that my chair in my studio, it's a pretty good, really a good office chair with all these like adjustments and stuff. And I'm kind of going, oh, let me adjust this, and it swivels. I think that's pretty important too. Like if you're spending a lot of time sitting in front of a screen, which a lot of people are these days, or on a couch or whatever, like to have a little bit of like a certain pillow that you can support your back, or a lot. That's something to think about too, right? I mean, your
100%,
chair.
100%. Well, it's such a good point. Because I get caught a lot like lounging on the couch watching a movie with my partner, and the next day, because I had a really bad car accident 7 years ago, so my neck is still like discharging. Ooh, I just got a feedback there. The misinformation in the cells. So I can actually get my neck goes out really easily. I'm in like this phase of my neck going out really easily. It wasn't right after the car crash, it's now. And so I'm healing that. And I noticed that if I lounge on the couch and I don't think about like propping my neck or like sort of making sure I'm more like straight and I just lounge, man, I pay for it the next day. And it's the most natural slouchy thing. Like we all have done the movement that I do on this couch. Like we're all, and I have to think about that. So I'm always like putting the little pillows, and then I'm like, okay, and then I'll settle in so I'm relaxed. But it's little things to watch like that.
It's the little things.
The little things.
Hey, hence the show. Nice callback.
Awesome.
I was just watching this Netflix show, Chef's Table.
Oh.
And it's about this, there's an episode about this Buddhist monk, Zhang Quan, and she's talking about food. But she said when you cook, you don't just focus on your physical, like the sensation of the taste. She's like, that's only one sensation. And then I thought she was going to talk about smell and sound, but she said, no, the other senses are, and I got to read this: body, feeling, perception, intention, and consciousness. And I love that, because the body is it's the form. But when we can connect it to our feeling and then our intention and our consciousness, then all of a sudden it sort of takes on this sort of like different embodiment, literal embodiment, right? And so it was just fascinating to think about our senses, not just through sight, sound, taste, hearing, but our senses as this intention, consciousness, and that the form is just in some ways the final sort of piece of it, of how all these other pieces kind of come together. And then we are just sort of visiting the form of it, the physical element of it. And it's just been like, okay, now where's my intention? Like you're talking about Oakley, your intention is healing. I was like, even that word in that moment for me, I was like, okay, what if that pain I'm feeling, what if I address it through the lens of healing as opposed to correction even? Like I'm going to correct my posture, which is then a sort of like very disciplined and sort of judgmental space.
I love it, because to me, healing comes through alignment.
Yeah.
Right. So, and not to get, I think we can go overboard with this. That's why we're teaching this class inside the context of the little things. We're not doing this class under the context of like enormous steps you must take to be better. Like, no, it's just like, it's the micro awarenesses that we're talking about this month, those tiny little adjustments where if I'm on a phone call, I'll notice if I get stressed, my right shoulder goes up. It's just a pattern that I have had for like probably since I was a teenager. And I'll constantly sort of just drop this shoulder and just roll it a little bit back. And it just has me release tension just by that movement. I don't even have to process what I'm thinking, because whatever I'm thinking goes away when I just let that shoulder go down and back a tiny bit. Because I know I do this, right?
Oh, I'm so glad I'm not alone on that one.
You're
That's
so
amazing.
not alone. That's like
I totally have the
favorite.
stress shoulder. It's immediate. And what I've noticed about it is that movement, part of it, then it changes the muscles in my neck, which then tightens my jaw, which I've shared that I've had the tinnitus this year for the first time in my life. And I've noticed that if I relax my shoulder, my neck relaxes, my jaw relaxes, and then the tinnitus goes down. And so that just one movement, all of a sudden, if I just like, whoop, and then what's also sort of helpful, and I think this is part of all these practices, is noticing our environment and how it's affecting us, and how do we move in a way that we're not so reactive to the environment that we're in, right? That we can actually sort of choose how we're responding to any given moment. And the sort of, for lack of a better word, mindless sort of behavior, stress, right? And then all of a sudden, like, no, okay, there's stress. I'm going to see it. There it is. I'm not going to let it pull this, because then I know like it's going to have all these other sort of trickle down effects in my day.
And I noticed too,
Sorry.
like, well, I was just going to add to that real quick. The hard conversations, I find I can soften and like receive harder conversations if I feel poised around my heart space. So if I'm like relaxing around my heart and I feel my shoulders are sort of like widening and there's just like an even ground in my feet, there's just something about being like super present with, you know, difficult conversations. But if I'm like protecting myself already and sort of like stressed in my body, I have a more challenging time in face to face, right? Like with whoever, sort of like making it through more gracefully. Does that make sense? It's like I'm already ready to be stressed. I'm like, what are you gonna say? Okay, I don't wait, what? I get so worried. But there's like no worry if I'm really just sort of relaxed in my body. I can really listen in a totally different way. It's one of my
That
secrets.
sense of agency and choice, right? Like that's part of it's the agency and choice that all of a sudden, when we know and anticipate, and to me, then all of a sudden the shoulder up is like a signal. Okay, like sometimes I don't even know I'm going to be stressed. Like you're sort of talking about it anticipatory. Sometimes it's sort of like, this is happening. And then I'm like, oh, okay, something is not jiving in this situation. So one, let me fix myself before I even sort of try to like look at what's going on around me.
That's it. It's also how I adjust. So if I start to get uncomfortable, I'll just do it in myself. The other person won't even know. Like I'll just take a breath and sort of reorient physically and just continue the conversation. But it'll allow me to re-engage and be present with what's being shared.
Trisha, I see you've got the finger pointing. You want to share something? No. All right.
Denise, you had your hand up.
Omar, I just talk along with you all and agree and then change my posture. If you can hear me all right, I have a different earbud in this time.
Yeah.
So I changed mine and I just thought, well, here I've been in bed and now it's time to get up and move my body a bit. And when you mentioned Oakley, when you mentioned conversations and just adjusting and that string, you know, I thought of that right when Omar was talking about in the beginning, and just the string on, like when we took dance when we were 5.
That's perfect.
And you know, just a whole bunch of stuff, but I don't need to feel it all now.
You're the best.
Cheers.
Thank you. Denise, what are you aware of?
So posture's just like the minute I stand up straight, I'm more confident. I'm just like, bam, I just feel stronger. So I it's a constant, you know, and I also, I don't know, I just think it's really important for lifelong health that opening up and standing up straight. I also find when I'm walking, my stuff lives in my lower back. And so I have to tuck my pelvis under when I walk. And then everything goes, zoot, that thing, that chimney you talked about, Omar, where it shoots out your head. Mine is this pelvic tuck under. And then suddenly everything's aligned. And I feel my whole body starts to work. I feel my quads work. I feel everything just, it feels stronger, but it also feels like it's working differently. So that's it's the shoulders back and down, and that's often from workouts. Like the minute you feel those shoulders creeping up, it's because you're fudging on your weightlifting or your whatever workout you're doing, and you're like, oh, I can't. So the physical piece is shoulders back and down. A girlfriend of mine one time, we were talking about posture and just trying to I've heard one of the girls, she said, heart to God. And I always hear string out of your head, but I love this heart to God because it just opens up the chest a little bit. It's a different way to think about it. And so my boy too, he's gonna be tall, and he's gonna be tall, and he's a little bit slouchy. And his friend, he's got a little belly on him, and his friends tease him about his belly. And I'm like, you know how you get rid of that? You just stand up straight. And then he'll stand up straight, and he's I can see everything about him changes, and I think he too feels that strength, and I want him to own that height and that confidence, you know. So I love posture.
That's so awesome. I love how you brought it into that sort of kid, young adult space, because that's where a lot of it starts, the patterning, right? When our bodies are changing and we're it's the whole thing. Yeah, well, and if you're, insecure or self-conscious or anything at all, it's no, own that, just rise to that. I love that, heart to God. Heart to God, I love that too. That one was really helpful for me to, instead of shoulders back, it's more just come straight from the middle versus this. It was here, and that was a new way to think about it for me. So I love that one. That's beautiful. Awesome. Thank you.
This reminds me, when 6 years ago, I read this book, Born to Run, and it's all about this guy who just was inspired to run and started doing some research on it, and that our bodies are actually designed to run long distances, and our ability to perspire, our Achilles heel, all these things. So animals, like dogs, they don't sweat, and so they can go fast for short distances, but then they sort of overheat. Whereas humans, we can actually go, we're designed to go long distances. And he really talked about barefoot running. And so me, of course, I'm game to try anything. I'm all right, I'll try barefoot running. I ended up and I hated running as a kid. If I had a ball, I could run and chase a ball forever. As soon as the coach would tell me, hey, Omar, go run some laps, I'd get cramps and I'd be hurting. So I never thought of myself as a runner. But I read this book and I was like, hey, if I'm born to run, then I should be able to do this. And it just became interesting that what happens when we take our shoes off and how our body actually begins to realign itself. Because we wear shoes that actually are tilted, which sort of puts us forward, right? And which is one of the challenges that we've talked about a bit today. So then all of a sudden and now Stanford track, they train without shoes every so often, just to kind of get your body back into its natural rhythm. You know, of course I took it too far and ended up running a marathon, and like my body was like not ready for that level of adjustment. And so like I sort of had to like tone it down a little bit. But it's just been fascinating to kind of realize what we can do with our bodies, and just how we, like, shoes are actually not so great for us. And what does it mean to take our shoes off and walk naturally, to really let our body kind of remember how it's actually supposed to move without all the things that we've added onto it. I mean, we talked about grace, I think, last time, and the definition of grace as something that's unadorned and in its original state. And our original state and our body's ability to move is amazing. We were born to chase animals in some ways, and born to be able to hunt and gather and move around. And so, like, what does it mean to kind of like take off some of these things, something as simple as our shoes, to kind of get back to that graceful space?
That's so awesome. I remember when those little feet, the little toe.
I didn't go there. I couldn't do
you
it.
didn't go there? Okay. Yeah.
All right,
Right on,
Amy.
right on, Amy.
No shame on them, you know, but I just personally,
Boulder, Colorado, I mean, you could have bought stock, like it exploded. Everybody had the feetsy thingies. It was awesome. Oh man, I love that. And I just had this thought about the nervous system. And I engaged chiropractic after the car accident that I went through a long time ago, and not because that's what I was called to. I was just in such a kind of compromised state after the car accident, and one of my mentors was like, "You need to go see this person," and I was like, I'll do anything. So that's how I got introduced to chiropractic. And I just remember like days leading up to an adjustment, and this was years after the car crash, days leading up to adjustment, I would feel sort of agitated, and like a lot of my energy would go towards trying to manage my emotional state. I was working, a couple years after the car crash, back in the office as a psychotherapist. Practice grew fast, and I loved sitting there and being with my clients. But I remember this sort of like background discomfort emotionally, sometimes like an angst or something like that. And I was like, I couldn't quite figure out what I was angsty about, because my life was quite simple back then. Like I had my house and my private practice and friends, and that, I got up, went to work, came home. Like it was just kind of a simple routine, and I was still in the healing. So I was like, what is the deal? But there was just sort of this thing I was like always managing, and it would build. And then I would go to chiropractic, I would get adjusted, and it would vanish. And I would feel completely peaceful and totally serene. And I would go home. And I was like, okay, so the nervous system can actually we can create negative feelings and negative thoughts when we're out of alignment. And that just sort of blew my mind a little bit, because I knew it as a practicing yogi, and I have a massage therapist degree. Like I've done a lot of that study. So I knew it mentally, but I experienced it not once or twice, for years, where that sort of prickly fire would start. And I was like, I just feel sort of worried about life and upset, and I'm not sure why. Adjustment, boom, all of it's gone. And I was like, oh my God, this is something, right? Because I would hold it through the neck and stuff from the car crash. So that's why one of the reasons we're really just talking about these micro adjustments today, because you can access such a deep quality of life just through making just these subtle adjustments in your physical body, and really change your thoughts, or get off the crazy train, right? Like whenever I start brewing, like my body posture is not like post yoga, right? It is not like collar blades shining, collarbone shining, heart is open. Like, that's not what I'm doing when I'm like, I'm worried about my life. Like, that's not, those two don't go together. You know what I mean? Like, I have a hard time ruminating or getting caught and stressed if I'm really in that centered physical space. Those thoughts may arise, but they can't stick as easily.
This is why I'm so excited about just where the progression of all this. And when we first started this sort of Thursday practice, it was very like meditation oriented, and we've obviously evolved it some. And I think part of it is just, again, this awareness of our noticing. Yeah. And, my initial sort of insight was this, okay, if meditation is noticing each breath, mindfulness is noticing change, gratitude is noticing good. And with Oakley now, we're saying, okay, just noticing the little things. Last week, it was just noticing our breath. This week, just noticing our posture, and just two things, just notice two things: soft ribs, heart to God, wherever your things are. And the crazy thing is how small these changes are, yet how big the transformations become. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I had almost forgotten that my shoulders go up until you reminded me, Oakley. Like, because I've been focusing on it for like 2 months straight up, right? Because I just noticed, like, every time I'm stressed, I'm like, what is going on with this shoulder, right? And then for 2 months now all of a sudden, like, I don't think my shoulder goes up anymore. And so then all of a sudden, all that stress that kind of builds up, like, I guess that's the other thing is, like, it's kind of funny that last month's series was the unlearning series, because I feel like in some ways these little things help us unlearn the big sort of bad habits that we have, just to get to our beautiful, unadorned, graceful state.
I love it. I love it. And, let's take it here for a sec. Let's go esoteric. So, I just keep thinking about how you brought it into the space of consciousness, and sort of the last expression was the physical form of the body. And, if we do that in reverse, if we go into the physical body, then we can actually reach the formless of consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. And so we store everything in the body. It's a microcosm of the universe. I'm thinking of my favorite astrophysicist. Who's the guy that does all the crazy books?
Stephen Hawking?
No. Oh, it'll come to me. He's amazing. And he breaks down.
Sagan?
Who is it?
Carl Sagan?
No, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
And so Neil, who I'll call by first name because I have a crush on him, is he did a lecture here in Denver, and I went to it, and it was just an amazing reframing of our lives and the universe and the interconnectedness of everything. And he ended up breaking down the percentages of molecular structure in the body. He was like, carbon, hydrogen, water, like that. And then he put a star next to it, and it was the same composition. And everybody in that auditorium in Denver Performing Arts Center, which was like thousands of people, their heads just exploded. And, it was there in science. It wasn't even a meditation. It was just right there, that as without, so within was true, right? And so on a spiritual path, in sort of more, in times long ago, let's just call it that, right? There was sort of, if you wanted to be spiritual, you needed to transcend the physical form, right? Transcend it. And you're transcending your thoughts, you're transcending everything. And, there's such an ancient teaching that's alive now where the transcendence actually happens through moving through it, right? So you get so related, so embodied, that you actually recognize that it's an illusion, right? So it's an experience versus a concept. So by subtly adjusting the body, by getting related to alignment in the physical form, we release the nervous system to shine its light, right? The photonic particles literally in our cells get to like express themselves more. We increase our electromagnetic field, right? If your electromagnetic field is increased and mine is increased, then guess what? That's not 1 + 1 = 2. We just went to the 10th power, right? So there's all these sort of like quantum mechanics of alignment in our physicalities that actually lead to awakening. How fun is that? Because it's really simple.
So we basically fix your posture and become a star.
Yeah, that's it, guys.
Perfect.
Shoulders back, breathe when you're nervous, and like you'll be enlightened. But it is the simple things, you know, because it's all here. It's all here for our journey, and there's nothing necessarily to leave or transcend necessarily. It's sort of like go in, like get really close to whatever it is, and you'll notice, poof, on the other side is just consciousness. I took it there, Omar.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think part of it, because the noticing is what is, not what we want it to be, we wish it could be. That moves us into the land of judgment. And I feel like the noticing what is sort of like, okay, there's the pain, there's the misalignment. And then just be like, okay, now I have a choice. So how do I want to respond? And I feel like us recognizing our agency, like Denise talked about, we have then that sort of confidence to then not be so reactive to everything that's happening to us. And we're not sort of victims to our circumstances, but we actually are empowered. And we can just be then our own orbit. Like, to be a star isn't judging its orbit, it just is. And when we can just be who we are, and then we can orbit in the ways that we need to. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm down for that.
Sweet. All right. We're all stars. Boom. That's great. That's great. We could take this for another hour. Gosh, there's got so many stories. I will add that this week has been, I don't know if everyone felt an intensity this week. There was something in the air, but my clients were really in another sphere. And I noticed I was too. I was like, wow, there's just some sort of velocity going on. And people were just like purging. I mean, and it was amazing because it happened in waves. I get this like really blessed seat, you know, to sit in a particular chair and sort of get this cross-sectional of humanity, you know. So all these people come through and they're all sort of like releasing the deepest thing that ties all the way back to childhood. I mean, not kidding. It was like consistent. And I sort of tonight was preparing for this call and was just reflecting on the week. I was like, holy smokes, you know, like it was just healing, just like deep healing. And I wasn't doing a lot. I was just sitting there being with people. I mean, it was just happening. And for all of the people that went through a really deep process this week in their sessions, there was so much physical release. Like whatever that was, it was held somewhere in their body. And there was like that physical discharge, you know, of like, ugh, like I'm getting it out, the crying, the twitching, the shaking. And then this lightness that followed, the exhale, right? With the new breath, the new inhale. So I think it's so important that we remember our bodies are regenerative. Every 7 years, we have a completely new cellular structure. The DNA is programmed to pass the information down to the next cell. But if we get involved consciously, we can change that programming. And every generation, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, all the way down, you can become a totally new person, right? Where you even turn off epigenetically lineage stuff. So our becoming is in our hands, and don't ignore your body. Amen.
Amen. And Justine left us with this beautiful note in the chat. The body is a reliable compass.
Oh, that's it. The body never lies.
And when we take the sort of the compass reading of our breath, of our posture, kind of see where we are, and then we can navigate and reorient to where we want to go.
Mm.
Namaste.
So let's all close together by just sort of swaying a little and finding that magnetic alignment that just feels restful to your own body. You can kind of sway back and forth, maybe tuck the chin, allow the collarbones to shine, as Amy said, shoulders down. Just be gentle, soften a little bit. And in that softening, just begin to take an inhale and an exhale. Let those back body, those back ribs even grow and expand. Stacking bone on bone, relaxing your muscles. And just take an inhale and an exhale again. Just noticing ever so gently, just a shifting in sensation. Just a slight adjustment, a compass adjustment to presence and peace. Heart, power, receptivity, tenderness, whatever it is for you. It's right there in the body waiting. We just have to adjust ourselves into alignment with it. And one more big inhale and exhale. It's such a joy to be together. Thank you so much for making the effort wherever you are tonight. New faces, familiar faces. We're so grateful to be with you. Omar.
Thank you, everyone.
Namaste.
Have a beautiful evening. See you next week.